We absolutely smashed 1,000 subscribers, and now we're on the road to 2,500, where I'll be doing yet another giveaway. All you've got to do to enter is like this video and subscribe. So we are now on to episode 8 of Use or Fuse, and this one is all about VURK. And to be honest guys, VURK was one of the first heroes I ever got, and he actually used to be my favourite hero, as early game he is pretty OP. So first of all, we'll go on to his story. Okay, so in VURK's story, the first 2 paragraphs aren't really about VURK. They're more about this thing called the Jury, which from my understanding is sort of like a brotherhood for rodents, and they're specially trained assassins that don't really engage in combat and prefer to, I guess, assassinate people. And the way they do that, it says here, is they dart out with short knives and they unleash crossbow bolts from the shadows before melting back into the darkness. So this helps us understand a bit about VURK, and he's from a group or a brotherhood of rodents called the Jury. So on to the rest of the story. It says that VURK shares people's proclivities for this form of combat, but lacks the caution which usually characterises them. His willingness to take risks sets him apart, and one feat in particular won him a great deal of renown. Entering the twisted nest of the Arachnian to plunder their deadly venoms. The Arachnian nests are generally regarded among the most dangerous places in the world, but the audacious VURK would settle for no less than the most potent poisons for his arsenal. So if you didn't know, VURK has an ability where he can basically throw a potion of poison, and I imagine that the Arachnian is where he gets his poison from. So even among the sly Jury, VURK exhibits exceptional stealth and cunning. Very few people, Jury or otherwise, could ever sneak through the mazes of web and clattering patrols of the Arachnian, let alone make it back out to tell the tale. VURK claims to have not only accomplished this incredible enterprise, but to have made it all the way to the heart of the prime nest, the very chamber of the Arachnian Queen herself. And if the toxicity of his bolts are any indicator, he was able to do that exactly. So he basically managed to slaughter the Arachnian Queen, and he gathered her poison, which is really, that's actually amazing. So he's not only sort of an assassin, he's basically the best of the best. And that's why VURK is so good in this game as well. So though it won him no love among their 8-legged allies, the enormity of the deed itself was enough to elevate the Jury in the eyes of the other Mauler tribes. Once word had spread of the success of this seemingly suicidal undertaking, the cunning Jury were looked upon in a new light. You can't defend against what you can't see. There's actually quite an interesting story about how VURK isn't a typical assassin, and he's more of sort of an assassin that just wants to kill anything in his path, and he's really greedy for that poison that he likes to throw at the enemies. So yeah, quite an interesting story. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. So as I mentioned earlier guys, VURK used to be one of my favourite heroes, if not my favourite hero. I used to think that he was so OP. And the reason for this is this skill here called Mania. So VURK runs up and down the battlefield for 15 seconds while he fires bolts at multiple enemies. And the reason this is so good is because it's 15 seconds of pure slaughter. And if you're in the labyrinth, there's actually a relic that allows VURK to fire 3 bolts at a time. So he's actually doing 3 times the damage output. And in the labyrinth and peaks of time, that is a crazy good skill that always comes in handy. He's actually also really good against a guild boss, not quite as good as the likes of Savius or Shamira, but he's definitely up there and one of the top damage dealing heroes. So his next skill here is Poison, which we know now that he gets this from the Arachnian. He kills them, takes their poison, and then throws it at his enemies as he likes to kill them. His next skill is Piercing Bolt. So VURK fires a piercing bolt at an enemy that is able to pierce them and strike a second enemy for 5% of the attack's base damage. so he's dealing damage to one and then a second hero as well. And then invisibility, so this skill used to be a bit questionable. Before the recent update, VURK would teleport himself to a very dangerous spot. For example, Brutus is mid-swing and VURK just teleports there and gets his head chopped off. He gets decapitated, but thankfully they fixed that in a recent test. Speaking of tests, we can now test heroes. So if we go into here, we can see what VURK is like if you haven't got him. So there he is firing his poison. That enemy is now poisoned and it is draining his health down and down. And now he's getting a skill where he can fire bolts for 15 seconds. And as you can see, he has no mercy whatsoever and he just slaughters the enemies. So is VURK use or fuse? In my opinion, VURK is one of the top 2 mythic tier Mauler heroes. So you've got Brutus and you've got VURK. I rate these two as the top mythics. And then Savius, he's insane for a legendary hero, guys. I can't wait to talk about Savius because early game he is probably one of the best heroes along with Chimera. But if you've got VURK, make sure you use him if you're going for a Mauler team, because he can deal some really good damage and he's a great pair for Brutus as well. If you guys enjoyed this video, please do drop a like and subscribe. I am doing a giveaway at 2,500 and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.